Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. This is the Q1 2026 full commission meeting for the Interstate Commission for EMS Personnel Practice. And it is February 11th, 2026. And I'm happy to see so many people on here. And the first thing we'll do is determine our quorum. And with that, I'll go to Commissioner Herrera, our secretary, for roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, we'll get right into it. Alabama, Commissioner Gray. Okay, Arkansas, Commissioner Crease.
Chrissy, she's present.
Chrissy, there's my first one. Colorado, Commissioner Bateman.
I'm here, thank you.
All right. Delaware, Commissioner Huss. All right, Georgia, Commissioner Johnson.
Georgia is president, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you. Idaho, Commissioner Denny.
He had indicated that he is extremely ill, said we could get a hold of him if we needed him for quorum, but he is probably absent.
Understood. Thank you. Indiana, Commissioner Kenny.
Present.
Iowa, Commissioner Vanderloo.
Present.
Kansas, Commissioner House.
Present.
Louisiana, Commissioner Bailey.
Present.
Mississippi, Commissioner Wyndham.
Present.
All right. Missouri, new Commissioner Vance.
Present.
Thank you. Nebraska, Commissioner Wilson.
Present.
Nevada, Commissioner Sullivan.
Present.
North Dakota, Commissioner Price.
Present.
Oklahoma, Commissioner Robinson.
Present.
Pennsylvania, Commissioner Martin.
Present.
All right. South Carolina, Commissioner Jones.
Present.
All right. South Dakota, Commissioner Hanson.
Present.
Tennessee, Commissioner Ward. Was that a present from Commissioner Ward? I'm going to say no. Okay. Texas, Commissioner Schmieder.
I am here.
All right. Utah, Commissioner Herrera, present. Virginia, Commissioner Behrman Fote.
I am here.
All right. West Virginia, Commissioner Weller. Okay. And Wyoming, new Commissioner Neugbauer.
Negabauer. Yes.
Negabauer. All right. Thank you. All right, Mr. Chair, back to you. Looks like we do have a quorum.
Thank you. As they indicated, I am Craig Kinney. I'm Indiana's commissioner, and I'm also your chairperson for the commission. Thank you all for being on here today. A few of our ground rules. We are a governmental body established by law, adopted by each of our states. Public and stakeholder attendance is encouraged. Public comment sections are included on the agenda, and the chair may may open any agenda item for public comment as well. To allow for equal participation by all attendees in this meeting, there are a few guidelines. First of all, the actual commissioners encouraged to join by video where possible. Public attendees, we welcome you. We encourage you to be here. And we do authorize our executive director may mute all mics, and if there is noise coming from one, then he will go ahead and mute that so that we can keep the meeting proceeding. There may be times we call for input, and usually my route will be to allow commissioners first and then public comment. As you prepare to comment, if I say we're going to have open discussion or comment, I would ask you to use the raise hand feature at the top. When you press that, it'll tell me the order. I will recognize you, and then you'll be able to give your comment. When you unmute, please state your name and organization. that you are representing and give your comments. And we do ask you limit comments to 2 minutes or less. In the case of any disruptive noise, disruptive behavior, or comments over 2 minutes, then our executive director may mute your microphone. So with that, we can look at getting into the business. And the actual first thing we have is the welcome of the new commissioners. And we have 2 of them today, and they are both on. And so I'd like to recognize them and see if they'd like to give a brief introduction of themselves. And that way we can get to know them a little bit. And so the first one is our Missouri commissioner, and that is Sam Vance. And I will recognize Commissioner Vance if you'd like to do any kind of introductory remarks.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you, everyone. My name, again, is Sam Vance. I am the new chief of the Bureau of EMS for the state of Missouri. Actually, the new old. I was actually in this position from 2019 to 2021, and now I'm back. And actually was part of the Compact Commission back during that time. However, a little thing called COVID happened, and I'm not sure how often we were able to get together back then. However, I'm happy to be back. Happy to be here with all of you, and look forward to working with you. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We look forward to having your experience and having you back in that role. Welcome. The second commissioner that we had as an appointment, and first of all, applaud both states. They were able to fill their spots relatively quickly when it comes to a state EMS director position. The other commissioner is Wyoming's commissioner, and that is Susan Negebauer. Did I get it correctly? Sorry.
No, you got it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Just wanted to say I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for the warm welcome. That watching the emails that Sam and I received as we joined this commission. A little bit about me. I have a background in early childhood special education, and I was also a paramedic at Denver Health for almost 15 years. Came to Wyoming to be closer to family. Started at the department here in April, and was the EMS program supervisor. With Aaron leaving, I was able to promote into his role. I'm super excited, like I said earlier. I look forward to working with all of you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate having you on board and working with you as well. With that, we will proceed. We have the agenda in front of us there, and that was posted per our requirements, and it was emailed out. Are there any additions to the business agenda for today? And do I have a motion to adopt the published agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Oh, 1 second, sorry. Go ahead, our executive director.
Thank you, sir. Would like to note that Commissioner Weller and Commissioner Ward has joined. If we can recognize them as present for the votes. And then also a request for the recording. And if anyone does make the motion from the commissioners, please state your name and your state for the record, and that will help us in record keeping. Back to you.
Thank you, Donnie. That actually makes it easier for me too, because I sometimes look at who's making the motion to see where it is. With that, I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda that's been published.
I'll make that motion. Mike Bateman from Colorado.
Commissioner Bateman with the motion.
Second, John Jones, South Carolina.
From South Dakota. You got double South.
We did. And I recognize Commissioner Jones as the one I heard first, but thank you both. Appreciate that. Any objections to adopting the agenda? Any abstentions? Okay, we shall show it adopted, and we are going to move on to reports, and we will dive right into my chairperson's report. It is 2026. I think the priorities that we are looking at this year continue to be streamlining what we have. We have a couple of projects we're looking at, rules-wise and otherwise, but one of the big things we look at is continued growth, and our executive director, Donnie Woodyard, has done an excellent job of outreach, and we have several states, and you're going to hear a few of them later on, that are seriously either have legislation pending or preparing to have legislation pending. And I think kind of our role is to continue the efficient operations of the compact, but also the growth of the compact. And then I would say a third area that our executive director has kind of led the pathway, and even has some discussion today, is making sure that we as commissioners are relevant. And each state has just one commissioner. We don't allow proxies. So thank you everyone for being here. Appreciate everyone taking the time to be here, because this is one of the big duties representing your state in this national government body. And it's very important that we have engaged people. We have continued to lead, and frankly, we've had some sign on to different projects that we have had. And I think that's a key indicator of the success that we've had. And that has been because of everyone in this commission is actively engaged. So thank you everyone to getting us where we are. I do want to publicly state, and I want to commend our executive director. I don't always comment publicly. The exec committee did recognize him with a small bonus last year at the end of the year. And I think it's important just to share that the executive committee, and I hope all commissioners, applaud the strong work by Donnie in advancing both his dedication in advancing the mission and all of the mission of the compact and all the areas that the compact engages in our states. And he has done that so well, and we continue to applaud him for that. And there are even things such as I was just approving financial reports with our treasurer, Commissioner Vandaloon, and I had commented to Donnie, and he thanked me for noticing. But when I go through that, when he travels, he often, is able to book a very minimally expensive flights, and then his hotel rates are usually about a third less than what I see for the norm. And so he really does take fiscal responsibility importantly. And I think it's important for us to have him traveling, but he does it in such a responsible way that I just want to commend him publicly for being able to do that. With that, that concludes my comments. Again, a very successful year. We just have to try to match last year. We got some successful rule enactments that really are important. We have to look at how to basically implement those rules this year, and also what other applicable rules we may want to consider. We started the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, is very popular, and we'll hear update on that. The Criminal History and Fitness to Practice Evaluation Committee is off to a strong start as well, and we will be hearing from them later as well. And then, as I indicate, rules and bylaws, we're able to get rules that were adopted at the end of the year. So commendations to all of them. With that, I will recognize our treasurer, Commissioner Vandaloon, for our financial update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This financial report's from Q4 of last year. Previous balance was $97,913.90, with debits of $50,751.18. We had credit of $47,500, and our balance as of 1/2 of 26 was $94,662.72. And I'll take any questions.
Any questions for our treasurer? Seeing none, now that I raised the bar for our executive director, Donnie Woodyard, I will turn it over to his report.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the kind words. It's an honor and a joy to serve the commission. It's certainly something that I believe in wholeheartedly, as you know. So boy, if I say it's been busy, that's an understatement. I believe we are in full force motion right now. I'm going to start by giving a state-by-state overview of some of the current legislation, some imminent legislation, some potential legislation, and a few updates around that. As you all know, the Rural Health Transformation Grant, $50 billion of funding went out, and that grant included not only a reference to EMS, but also a direct call out of the EMS Compact. States that are part of the EMS Compact receive points on the application. States that are not part of the EMS Compact lose points on their application, which translates into money and finances. Having the EMS Compact named in that was tremendous and has given a lot of support. The other thing I will note before I go through the states is the Department of War and the Department of the Air Force has specifically included the EMS Compact on the military base assessment scorecards moving forward. And what that means is that as the military bases are assessed and ranked around the nation, military bases in states that are part of the EMS Compact, by name, the EMS Compact, receive preferential points compared to the states that are not part of the compact. This represents a monumental shift in federal priority of the EMS Compact being a nice to have to being a true federal priority for health, safety, welfare of the United States. With that background, here is a state-by-state update. I am going to provide the best information I know of as of today. Florida, we have a EMS Compact bill that's part of a larger omnibus bill that would enact the EMS Compact. It has passed the House, I'm told, and is on the way to the Senate in Florida. Ohio's governor has committed to the EMS Compact as part of the Rural Health Transformation funding program, and they've put a date of by next year. I do not have an update on the status of that other than the governor's office has said it is a priority. Massachusetts, we have a bill that is in study there. It's been a study bill for the EMS Compact, and we anticipate that we'll probably get more motion on that next year. In New Jersey, we have an EMS Compact bill as well that's been filed. New Mexico has a bill that has passed to join the EMS Compact, has passed out of the House, headed to the Senate. Arizona has the EMS Compact bill, and I anticipate it will be reheard in committee next week. Montana is in a pre-filing state right now. There's a sponsor and someone interested. We do not have a bill number yet, but we anticipate that will be considered relatively soon. Oregon has committed to joining the EMS Compact through their governor's office. I don't have an update status. I suspect that will probably be next legislative session. Alaska has committed, the governor has committed to joining the EMS Compact. We have a sponsor identified and anticipate a bill number any day. The Department of Defense has, by the way, been helping in splitting travel, meaning that I can't be in all states at the same time. The Department of Defense has had their state defense liaison officers actually testify in support of the EMS Compact on behalf of the Department of Defense and Department of War in a number of states. And they are a tremendous partner in helping us advance this. So that is a brief update on the status of legislation right now. It feels like I'm getting phone calls and emails every minute of every day at the moment. Next is an update back to the Rural Health Transformation Grant. Our office did an analysis of all 50 grants as submitted by the states. And just to level set for the record, it's $50 billion that will translate over 5 years, approximately $1 billion per state over the 5-year period. The actual amount by state varies up or down a little bit. So it's not a straight $1 billion, but grants have been awarded this past year. They range from approximately 166 million to about $250 million per state for year number one. As I noted before, not only was EMS included in the bill, EMS was recognized as an essential part of the rural health strategy for the United States. The EMS compact was specifically included in the application that states had to fill out. However, despite that, based on the analysis I've done, about 10 to 11 states, I did not find EMS referenced in their grant application. I find that extremely, extremely troubling that perhaps 20% of the nation states did not recognize EMS explicitly in the grant application. The local awards by the states have not been given, and so states that did not reference EMS might certainly be planning to include EMS, but it was not explicitly clear. So based on that analysis, I have been working on a recommendation, and this would be a policy recommendation and intergovernmental recommendation from our office to ensure that a minimum amount of funding from Rural Health Transformation Grant is designated to EMS across the United States. And I've been working on that proposal. I've shared it with our chair. We'll work on the next steps of that. But I think it's fundamentally important that we ensure that the rural health safety net, which is emergency medical services, is included. I do want to give one shout out to Wyoming. It was overwhelming, the EMS emphasis in their state grant. I applaud them. It was approximately 48% of the total submitted application was direct for EMS funding. That is over or near close to $100 million in year one. Absolutely tremendous. And so that compared to some states where the funding amount was zero is a disparity I believe that we need to address. We are continuing to work with our federal partners on upgrades to the coordinated database. I don't have any specific update on that project right now, but I know that it is continuing to move. The project is still alive, which is positive for all of us. And I'll provide updates as that becomes available. We did add to the website a few additional things. And so if I just switch my screen sharing here, I want to just call that out for everyone on the call. On the website, we added a medical director Q&A tab. We realized that I was getting questions from medical directors, and so I went through the most common questions here and outlined factual answers to those questions. So this is a new resource that is available on our website. Please feel free to share this and get that out. I continue to have a lot of webinars scheduled. Next week, I will be doing a webinar sponsored by COA EMS. And so it will be targeted at educational institutions and program directors outlining the EMS Compact. Unfortunately, our proposals yet again for EMS World from the Compact, and I submitted one as a educational session and a panel discussion. Unfortunately, this is 10 years in a row where that has not been accepted. And that is troubling considering over 450,000 EMS clinicians in the United States have a privilege to practice through our governmental body. We believe that providing education about that governmental privilege is absolutely essential. We are continuing to look for other mechanisms to engage with other partners to ensure that message is presented. With that, Mr. Chair, I turn it back to you. Stand for any questions.
I am going to recognize Commissioner Schmieder. If you do have a question or comment for Donnie, you can use the raise hand feature while we are hearing from him. Commissioner Schmieder.
Thank you. Just one comment and comments basically on the federal grants. I think it's worth noting, Donnie, that the state EMS office may have put it in, like I know in my own state, they had another whole outside agency that made a determination what the priorities are. So I'm thinking it's probably happened in some states where they didn't make a priority because it didn't make that second level. It wasn't
Yep.
it wasn't for the lack of trying for some places. And then I would just ask, and we put on our website the Q&A on medical directors. If you make any changes in the future to that, just let us know, let us all know. And it's probably easier if you just change the whole document and then we just change out documents. Whatever's easier for you, Donnie, but just to keep that in mind. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Commissioner Smeeter, we'll do that. And, you know, to your point, thank you for bringing that up. And I think your points actually underscores why I believe we need to look at some action on this of a congressional directive, because I do believe that state EMS offices fiercely advocated to be included. But the sense I get and the analysis I did is that request did not make it through to the state agency that's administering the actual grant program. And so therefore, I think some congressional direction to remind the states that this is a program to help EMS in addition to hospitals is important.
And you know, Donnie, and for everybody else, and Dee will know this, you know, probably 15 years ago, 10 years ago, we had the same battle of just getting EMS to be decided or included in any of the federal grants. And we kept working with the NHTSA's Office of EMS and said, you got to say EMS. You just can't say pre-hospital, you can't say healthcare. You have to say EMS. And that's been an ongoing battle.
So I read Donnie's document and I didn't get a chance to talk with him because it just came through in the past half hour. But I think there are great discussion points, and probably I know he's anxious to get it out there because of the fast pace of that funding cycle. So my anticipation is that I will probably designate a committee. So I'm open to thoughts on that, or you can get with me after the meeting. Or if you would have interest in the committee, then let Donnie and I know on that. But I think that's my inclination, so that way we can get a state perspective on it. But I think there's enough there to warrant a kind of deeper review, because I understand, and I explained the same thing, Commissioner Schmieder, when I was talking about Indiana. You know, I'm like, we advocated, but you know, there were different layers, and then you kind of get buried. And I think what Donnie's point is maybe from the top, if they say, hey, you should have 5% of your total allocation, then they're going to take the marching orders from them rather than us waving and yelling. Unfortunately, we get kind of steamrolled in the interests. So I think it's definitely worth taking a look at. Any other comments right now or other questions for Donnie? Thank you. We will go into committee reports. I did note that I skipped something, I think. I don't believe I asked for public comments for things not on the agenda. I will do that after we finish the reports and before old business. So if you wanted to comment on something that wasn't a particular item on here, know that you will have your opportunity to do so. But continuing on to reports, let's do committee reports, and we'll start with Stakeholder Advisory Committee. And I would just say I want to thank Donnie. I have sat in, I believe, on all of them we've had. He is organized, they are well attended, and they have good discussion, both education and discussion. And I think it's been a great thing to him. And I did commend when he left Commissioner Kaler for his work on that. But I think Donnie has done a lot of the legwork, and I will recognize him for an update on that group.
Thank you. Well, we have a meeting scheduled next week, and actually two things. One is Commissioner Kaler was the commissioner in charge of that committee, the chair. We now have a vacancy on that, and so it would be a good opportunity if, Mr. Chair, if we could address that vacancy for that committee. And then also number 2 is I will be actually in an airplane next week, transversing between Kansas City and Washington, D.C. for compact meetings. So I need to make a decision if we're going to postpone that or if a new chair will be appointed that would like to run that meeting. Other than that, what you said is true. The purpose of that is to have a conversation with stakeholders, receive information, answer questions, and unlike other committees, we do not take formal minutes of that one. It's an open meeting, but we do not go on the record per se, so it's a discussion.
I will accept, if you are interested, please reach out to me and I'll designate a committee chairperson for the stakeholder. It's kind of, it's the chairperson, but it's kind of liaison too, besides just having Donnie come back and tell us what the stakeholders were interested in. By having a commissioner there, you kind of bridge that gap and let them know we're listening. I do try to sit in on them as I'm available, and I am available next Wednesday, so I probably will leave it on if I get with Donnie and get some good talking points to get feedback from them. Because I think I will like the fact that they have been attending and people are engaged. So I want to keep that up. But if you have any interest, please reach out and let me know, and we'll designate a new chairperson. I think what we were holding up on that one was where we had some of the elections to see where people landed and whether we had positions for them. And so we'll get someone appointed for that. Thank you for your update. Any questions on Stakeholder Advisory Committee or comments? The next one is actually has a business item, but we'll go ahead and hear a little bit of a report from the Criminal History and Fitness to Practice Evaluation Committee. That was formed out of a good discussion from annual in-person meetings. So again, that will be another one that I remind people later in the agenda, but please try to attend the in-person, which is, I'll have to get the date, but it's coming up at the end of April. It's during the SIMSO's annual meeting as well. And so with that, I'll turn over to Commissioner Jones for an update on his committee and the work they've been doing.
Thank you, sir. Since our last meeting, we haven't done any additional work other than getting the draft document that we'll be reviewing today. And there was some amendments that we're going to be proposing to it. So we'll talk more in depth later when we get to that part of the meeting.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Rules and bylaws, Commissioner Schmieder, and thank you for being here in the midst of your medical leave.
Well, thank you so much. So the bylaws committees has not met since the last since the end of the year. Once I get through, I had a knee replacement on Friday, just for people who don't know. So this is my first week actually up and above ground, feeling good. And so we haven't had any meetings. We will be meeting starting in March again, and I'll work with Donnie to set up a date with that chairman. And then if anyone's interested, we are always interested in a couple of new members. If you're interested, let myself know, let Donnie know, let Craig know. And we have a strong committee, but we'll get together again in March. Thank you.
Thank you. It is a good committee. And so if you have interest, let us know. And I can designate you on that. We don't have it listed. We had talked and I had designated, I believe during an executive committee meeting, and we had asked that Commissioner Joe House head for us a compliance committee that would look at, now that we have some of these new rules about how states are supposed to be engaged, and the committee would kind of help navigate and assist Donnie with issues of compliance. And so I had designated Commissioner House, and we have not got that going, and we need to do that. So we need some people for that committee as well. And so if you are interested, and we will, Donnie, if we can probably need to do an email with some of these open things. If you're interested in any of these, let us know. And that would be one of them. Anything, like I said, I know it's kind of a newer concept. Anything you want to add to that, Commissioner House? Put you on the spot a little bit.
No, just looking forward to getting that started and getting it going. So thank you.
Thank you. I know you'll do good things with it, and I think we need it. And this isn't, hopefully not a cracking the whip committee majorly. The idea is to have resources that can pool and get people into compliance, and that is always our goal, rather than to have a hard line. The final report we have is our database administrator report, and that is administered by National Registry of EMTs. And I recognize Ray Mollers for his report on that.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome everybody. It's good to see so many faces. So for the report on the left side, the monthly API submission, the only one to point out is Tennessee has encountered difficulties since last September, and the last correspondence I have with them was on the 21st of January, that they are working through some issues and then have to do some more testing to hopefully get that back online. And going straight down, still nothing from Oklahoma and Pennsylvania. I believe nothing has changed, that it needs some sort of vendor or capability that will allow them to send information to the coordinated database. Of the three that are still have been in testing, we have Delaware encountered an issue with their ALS. November 20th is the last correspondence I have from them. They were working on, they could individually send records, but not in a batch. So hopefully they'll work through that. I am very happy to report that Indiana is very close to getting all their data live. Just today, they added 4 more paramedics to the QA and have credentials to hopefully any day start loading records into the coordinated database. Nebraska, I spoke to Tim Wilson on the 5th of this month, and they've had some personnel changes and hope to be back up and testing in the QA environment again very soon. And hopefully that'll be a quick transition to the coordinated database itself with records. So barring any questions, that's my report for this month.
Commissioner Schmieder, go ahead.
Thank you. Ray, on this report for those states, like you just gave us a report on each state, can you somehow put in these documents, last communication with a date next to it, so that we know that something's happening and that there is communications and that we're moving forward? And the whole purpose, I think, is we all know this is the most important thing we need to operate and work to make the compact strong. And to get a report, we haven't had any communication, doesn't benefit us. So I don't know, is that possible? Maybe restructure this somehow to do it in a way that we know as a commission, when was the last time there was some open communications with them? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I can add that to the report. I do request the commission to assist. I don't believe it's totally on my shoulders to track and run all these states down. I believe there's some responsibility back on the commission.
I would agree with that. I think what we want to capture is known correspondence, and I don't know that it always has to be on you. And I think that's something Commissioner House and his committee can work with you on the compliance end as well, on who is doing the notifications and how you record it. But I think it would be nice in future documents to have it there.
Sure, thank you.
Did you time out, Commissioner Jones? You did have a question. You're good. Okay, Commissioner Robinson, go ahead with your question.
Yes, I just wanted to, I don't know if this is time to report that in Oklahoma, we are working on with Image Trend, with them becoming a statewide vendor. Once that process is being completed, then we'll be able to move forward, at least the online component process. And so I'm hoping by our meeting in April, we'll at least be able to have a contract in place with Image Trend to move forward. And then hopefully by for Oklahoma's next licensing, because Image Trend said it's going to be about an 9-month process, because we'll have to integrate historical data from the vendor we have now. And so, but we are excited in Oklahoma that we are closer now than we were this time last year.
Mr. Robinson, thank you for that update, and thank you for speaking up, because I know your state in particular was one of them that had a lot of challenges from where you started, and I think that is a big step in the right direction, and it'll be exciting for you guys as well. So I'm glad. Donnie, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two comments for the record. One is Commissioner Robinson, thank you for that. I just want to note on the record, we had met with a different vendor that was not a certified integrated vendor for the commission. We don't have a preferential vendor, but we do have certified vendors. And so it sounds like internally you were able to re-navigate and identify one of the certified vendors, which will make your onboarding much better. So thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
And then for the record, I also see that Commissioner Martin put in the chat that Pennsylvania anticipates having their agreement signed with Image Trend as well within the next month. So it looks like we have continued progress going on there.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Martin. That's a great update from Pennsylvania as well. Thank you both. Any other questions or comments related to Ray's report? Okay, that completes the reports phase, and I indicated that I would go back and catch public comments for if you just have a comment or a quick question or comment. Now is the time, if it's not have a line item on the agenda. If so, please use the raise hand feature and I'll be glad to recognize you, and you can have 2 minutes. And the next thing up we'll do after that is the minutes, which Donnie is sharing there and were emailed out. So we'll give it a minute, see if there's any questions or comments. With that, we will move on to old business. And we have to, our next action item is to approve the Q4 2025 meeting minutes from November 5th, 2025 for our full commission meeting there. The minutes, part of them are on the screen. They were emailed out. I will accept any comments or corrections or any motions related to the proposed minutes.
Hanson, South Dakota, move approval.
This
South
is
Dakota. Move.
Mark with Utah. I will second.
And our secretary, Mark, with the second. Any further discussion on the minutes, questions or clarifications? Anyone opposed to adopting the minutes as posted? And anyone wishing to abstain from adoption of the minutes? Thank you. We will show the minutes adopted and you may proceed with posting them, Donnie. Thank you. Moving on to new business, we have the position paper 2601, which is criminal convictions and licensure of EMS personnel. This was the work product of the Criminal History and Fitness to Practice Evaluation Committee. And it also was shared, and I believe we may have some comments on that. I will start by recognizing Commissioner Jones as the chairperson of the committee.
Thank you, sir. I'm actually going to turn it over to Donnie because we got some amendments to this, and I haven't had time to fully look over them right before the meeting, but what I have seen, I'm in agreement with. So I'll let Donnie explain a little further.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones, and to the committee who did yeoman work on this. So just a way of level setting for all commissioners and for members of the public and for the record. The commission has a number of tools available to be in compliance with our statutory obligation. And one of our statutory obligations is to collaborate and coordinate on all things related to EMS personnel licensure. One of those tools is administrative code and administrative rule. When the commission adopts an administrative code or administrative rule, that has the force of law. This is not either of those. Another tool that we have available to us is the concept of a position paper. A position paper is an advisory. It is merely that. It is the position, if adopted, of the collective of the EMS Compact member states of a particular position on something. As a commission, we've adopted a number of position papers. We adopted a position paper that said all EMS clinicians should have a criminal history records check prior to licensure in compact states, and it's our position that it should also be the same in non-compact states. That has no binding effect on law as a position paper, but it's our position. This particular position paper tackles a part of EMS professionalism that the industry has not fully tackled for 50 years. And that is the question, how do you balance state sovereignty with the reality that individuals have criminal records when they come to become licensed? We would like to say no one in EMS has any criminal record, but the reality is many people do have some type of a criminal record. It might be as inconsequential as a speeding violation, or it could be up to a serious felony. When a state EMS office is reviewing the criminal history record check, most commonly from the FBI, state EMS officials, including the commissioners on the call, and our colleagues in non-compact states, have to make a judgment call and a decision based on the information presented to them. The committee analyzed the legislative requirements that we had available to us from across the nation. We identified that some states have defined in either state statute or an administrative code that certain felonies, certain criminal offenses are a bar or a barrier from an individual becoming licensed ever. For example, some states, if you have been convicted of homicide or murder, you shall never be licensed as an EMT or paramedic. Other states do not have that list defined in law or in statute. While I believe that most on the call would agree, if you have someone that was convicted of a crime that carried a life in prison sentence or even the death penalty, they should probably not be entrusted with an EMS license to practice. However, as you go down through the vast list of crimes, it gets less black and white and more challenging to make that determination. One of the underpinning foundations of this paper goes back to the Hawker v. New York Supreme Court case in the 1800s where a physician was convicted of a felony and the state of New York revoked their medical license. It went all the way to the Supreme Court and established the precedent that gives our offices today the legal authority to actually make determinations based on morality. And that is the determination in public good to determine if someone should or should not be permitted to practice in a restricted field such as medicine. That is the purpose of this document. The committee evaluated a number of cases, and we provided a lot of background here that I'm not going to repeat any more than what I have. But the committee came up with a 4-tier system. And in this 4-tier system, this would be guidance. And I want to underscore that. This is guidance to states. This does not change your state law. This is not an administrative code of the commission. This is guidance to your office to help you in making a decision. It would be a resource for your office if you made a decision and was questioned, why did you make that determination? Then you, as the state official entrusted with that decision, could say, I've got a best practice recommendation document that's the collective voice of 25 states that gives guidance that this is what I should consider. So tier 1 offenses are what we would call permanent disqualifiers. These are the most serious offenses out there, typically categorized by life in prison, death sentences, capital punishment, etc. The recommendation here would be an automatic denial with no rehab review, meaning that barred from life in one of those categories is the recommendation. A tier 2 offense are serious felonies and misdemeanors, amongst the most serious of felonies and misdemeanors, but we recognize in some cases, individuals may finish their proscribed sentence, finish their debt to society, show evidence of rehabilitation, and depending on your local state law and your local guidance, some states may allow these individuals to either obtain a restricted or an unrestricted license after a look-back period. We recommend 7 years of look-back, which would be 7 years from the time you finish your sentence in debt to society with a clean record. Tier number 3 is what we call a discretionary review. This is that messy bucket in the middle, for the lack of any better term. And this can be anything. It could be a denial, it could be a limitation, it could be an approve. There are probably the bulk of things that fall into this bucket, but the seriousness of these crimes overall are much less serious. And then the final bucket is what we say is non-considered or a green on the category. And these are things that generally should not be or would not be considered, with a couple exceptions. If a record has been dismissed, expunged, if it's a juvenile record, if it is a traffic infraction or something, a conviction for something that is no longer criminalized, then those are typically recommended not to be a barrier to entering the EMS profession. However, a couple of exceptions. If it was a juvenile record and it was a tier 1 offense, example, homicide, then that in most cases should be considered. In some states, you may have a question about the ability to review juvenile records. That's outside the purview of this position paper, but I would tell you there is precedent set under public protection to review those records in many states. And we can have an offline conversation with that. So this is the document that was initially drafted. Now, we have had some feedback from our partners at NASIMSO, and we also had feedback from the state of Nevada. And so based on that feedback, I've got some track changes here. And the basic feedback is that we deleted specific state names under the recommended best practices. While we did a best effort to identify state statutes, we recognize that we may have not correctly put every state into the right bucket. And so what we did is we just removed that for the purpose of the final paper, said some states have this and other states have that. And that way we don't go on the record permanently of saying a particular state is in this category or that category. We included a pre-trial intervention program and recognizing that both our enabling statute for the compact recognizes a pre-trial intervention opportunity, but also many states have that. And what we put here is that under this, individuals charged that enter into this program would be evaluated on a public risk perspective due to the nature of the charges and their plea. And particularly, if someone is entered a non-guilty plea and the underlying contact does not preclude EMS practice, then the compact privilege would be provisional and their state license could remain intact. Let me just explain that really quick. The EMS compact states are required to deal with two parts of the license every time you recognize criminal offense and every time you have discipline. Part one is your state license. Part two of the decision is the compact privilege to practice. Those are related but independent decisions. You could have someone who has an unrestricted license in your state, potentially with a provisional privilege to practice in accordance with the rules that this body adopted last year. A provisional privilege to practice does not keep someone from practicing. It merely says before you practice in another state, you have to contact that state office and they have the opportunity to review the records that you would have disclosed if you had actually submitted an application for a license in that state. So that's provisional. And then it goes through on how to handle more serious and less serious pretrial interventions. Overall, we believe this is a consensus recommendation for this document. We made, and I know some people might be having problems getting into here, so we'll keep on trying that. We'll note that under the compliance, some of the feedback was confusion under state versus member state. I'll just address that again on the record. We accepted the recommendation that came forward. However, I just have to note that this is a position paper of the compact. So it is implied that, it is a position of the compact for states. And I would even note that if we adopt this, I believe that the message is that this is a position of the compact states to be interpreted universally for all states in the United States, knowing it's not binding, but a position. Let me phrase that a different way. If we adopt this, I believe the commission would be saying it is the position of the compact that everyone practicing in EMS in all states should consider these factors when issuing a license in the interest of public protection, compact or non-compact. With that said, it's a simple addition and we're happy to add that. We added some clarifying language. Again, just to clarify, states can fulfill this in accordance with your own administrative procedures and state law. Moving on down. We added, based on the feedback, a pattern assessment. And this was a very important addition. recognizing that there is a difference perhaps between someone obtaining a single DUI. And if I editorialize here, I believe it's important to note that EMS offices issue a license for the practice of EMS. The driver's license office issues the determination if someone can drive, and it's possible to practice EMS if you cannot drive. That's an employer decision. However, there's a difference in someone obtaining one DUI versus 5 DUIs in a row. And that pattern might change the recommendation under the interest of public health and safety. So that's why this pattern assessment was added. We added some additional footnotes and resource and documentation, much appreciated there. And with that, I believe I have captured all of the feedback. We have done a good faith effort to incorporate all the feedback. And Mr. Chair, I present to you a document for consideration.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones, anything you wish to add to that?
No, sir. I think Donnie covered everything. After reviewing everything, I'm in full agreement for the amendments. I would like to make a motion that we adopt this as amended.
We have a motion to adopt as amended from Commissioner Jones. Is there a second?
Commissioner Bierman vote, though I was on the committee, am I allowed to second it?
Yes, you may.
Then I second it.
A second noted by Commissioner Bierman. Vote. Thank you. And thank you for your work on the committee and the entire committee. I do want to pause and comment on one thing. We spent a decent amount of time going through this, and the committee did, and then it was looked at too by the executive committee level. And I think, am I correct, Donnie? I believe not with the amendments, but I believe that we've talked to legal on the main part of it, correct?
Legal received the document. I did not receive concern back, but we did not ask for a formal legal review back. So I don't want to speak on behalf of counsel who's on today, but they do have visibility on the document, and I did not receive any red lights.
I apologize. I think I was thinking of the rural adoption we did at our last meeting, and
Yes.
legal was heavily involved. And this is a position paper, so it's not binding as rural or otherwise. I do know Christy Malo, thank you for being on, and Doug Wolfberg is our co-counsel, and appreciate all the work that they do for us as well. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments, questions, discussion on this before I call the vote? Yes, Commissioner Bateman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say thanks very much. This is very impressive, and I think will be hugely helpful. We've been searching for this kind of guidance in Colorado, so I appreciate all the work that this clearly represents. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate, thank you, Donnie. I appreciated your explanation as to what this stands for, because I know not this position paper, but I've had some where I agree with 90%, but 5%, I'm like, that doesn't really fly in our state. But I supported the position paper due to the fact that it is a position paper, even though I knew Indiana wouldn't adopt, that 5% of it. And so I think you can take a view of supporting, even if all the elements may not be state specific, because you're not necessarily committing your state to adopting these. We hope you do, because we think it gives consistency and it comes from a reliable source, but we do understand there are slight variances. Any further questions or comments? I will go ahead and proceed to the vote then. We have the motion, we have the second. Since it's position paper, not a rule, I don't know that I'll do a roll call vote. I will ask first, though, if there's anyone opposed to adopting the criminal convictions and licensure of EMS personnel as amended as a position paper. Anyone against? Then I will ask if there is anyone that wishes to abstain from this vote. Congratulations. We will show it as adopted as a position paper. Thank you, Donnie. Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Thank you to the committee for your hard work on this. And then we also will relay, I believe Dia is on. Please give our thanks, or I guess I can in my other hat, to our NASIMSO and our council there that took a look at this and gave us some great feedback as well. So appreciate that. That is the last of our new business. The last thing we have is update from our partners. And with that, if you are a partner organization, stakeholder, and would like to give an update, please use the raise hand feature. I will probably put Dia on the spot if for nothing else, talk about the annual meeting, since we do tie in our full commission in-person meeting there as well. And so with that, I will go ahead and recognize Dia Gaynor, the Executive Director for NASIMSO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and commissioners. We first and foremost want to thank you for your consideration of the comments that we submitted regarding the draft that you just reviewed, and very much appreciate the opportunity to contribute. As Chairman Kinney points out, we are very much looking forward to our annual meeting, which includes hosting a meeting of the commission the week of April 26th in beautiful Kansas City, Missouri. And so looking forward to seeing as many of you as possible there. I'll conclude my comments with that, Mr. Chairman. If there's anything else of interest to commissioners in their commission capacity, I'd be happy to answer anything.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments for Dia on that? And I'm looking up on the current schedule. At a glance, it looks like Tuesday, April 28th is when our Interstate Commission meeting is scheduled in the afternoon. So hopefully, if you're planning, you're planning to be there all week, but we hope to see commissioners in person for our meeting. And I think we'll talk it over with Donnie and the Exec Committee. But I think last time was very successful, where we kind of had a breakout discussion. And frankly, what we just voted on was an offshoot of, what came through there. So I think you'll see something similar at this year's in-person meeting for our commission. Were there any other updates that anyone wanted to give? Okay. With that, then, I guess we are winding down. Again, thank you, everyone, for being on here. Appreciate you handling your duties and being on. It is important, but we had good engagement. I was counting, and I think we were less than a handful that were not on here, and a couple had reached out and advanced with very valid reasons why they could not be. But we are glad you make it a priority, and it's important that we have your state's membership in here. And so with that, I am going to wrap up the meeting, and I was looking for our future meetings, but we have that one coming up for full commission. We also have several executive committee meetings. All of our commissioners are always welcome at the executive committee meetings as well, if you would like to observe, and we do allow comments and things just as non-voting. Thank you again, everyone. Appreciate a successful meeting, and everyone have a great day. We are adjourned. Thank you, Donnie. There it is. I lost it in my meeting book.
Thank you very much.